Welcome to this week's episode of This Week in Diaspora History on the Jewish Diaspora Report. Let's get started. 19th of Adar, 1940, British Mandate for Palestine. The MacDonald White Papers went into effect, restricting all sales of British Palestinian land to Jews. The policy first drafted March 1939 was prepared by the British government. The paper called for an establishment of the Jewish national home in an independent Palestinian state within 10 years. This rejected the previous Peel Commission idea of partitioning the land between the two peoples. It also limited Jewish immigration to 75,000 for 5 years and ruled that further immigration would then be determined by the Arab majority. Jews were restricted from legally buying land in all but 5% of the mandate. This aim was to quell the violence between Arabs and Jews in the British Mandate for Palestine. Many of these restrictions stayed in place until the end of World War II, when the British left and Israel became a state. 24th of Adar, Wurzburg, Germany, 1147. The Jews of Wurzburg were massacred by Crusaders. During the 12th century, Wurzburg housed one of the most important and prosperous Jewish communities. Wurzburg suffered the same fate as other German Jewish communities during the persecutions of the Second Crusade. Oftentimes, the Crusaders traveling from Europe to the Holy Land would attack Jewish communities along the way. The Bishop of Wurzburg, Siegfried von Querfurt, tried in vain to protect the Jews of the city, and following the events, he laid aside a portion of his private land for the burial of the victims of the Crusader massacre. 25th of Adar, Paris, France, 1181. The King of France orders the detention and ransom of all Jews in Paris attending shul on Shabbat. Immediately after the coronation of King Philip Augustus on the 14th of March, 1181, the king ordered that all Jews be arrested on that Saturday in their synagogues, and all of their money and investments will be taken. The following year, he published an edict of expulsion, but according to the Jews, a delay for 3 months was needed to sell all of their personal property. Any immovable property, such as houses, fields, vines, barns, and wine presses, were confiscated. Their synagogues were converted into churches. Also 25th of Adar, Washington, D.C., United States of America, 1891. A petition circulated among prominent non-Jewish Americans requesting U.S. government aid to reestablish a sovereign Jewish state in Eretz Israel. The Blackstone Memorial of 1891 was a petition written by William Eugene Blackstone, a Christian restorationist, in favor of returning the ancient land of Israel, then controlled by the Ottoman Empire, to the Jews. It was signed by many leading American citizens and presented to the President Benjamin Harrison. The petition called for the USA to aid the reestablishment of a sovereign Jewish state. The petition was signed by prominent non-Jewish men like J.P. Morgan, William McKinley, John D. Rockefeller, among many others. It was a spontaneous expression of American sympathy for Zionism, totally independent of the Jewish Zionist activities. The petition was motivated by biblical influences and by the intense indignation aroused by Russian pogroms against Jews. It stated, quote, "Why shall not the powers which under the Treaty of Berlin in 1878 gave Bulgaria to the Bulgarians and Serbia to the Serbians now give Palestine back to the Jews?" These provinces, as well as Romania, Montenegro, and Greece, were wrested from the Turks and given to their natural owners. Does not Palestine as rightfully belong to the Jews? End quote. A second memorial was presented privately to President Wilson following World War I and the downfall of the Ottoman Empire in 1917. The second memorial strongly influenced President Wilson to let the British government of Lloyd George know of the American sympathy in favor of the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration is the British declaration for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. This American petition and American call for a Jewish state predates one of the first major Zionist works, The Jewish State by Theodor Herzl, which would follow a number of years later. This has been another episode of This Week in Diaspora History. New episodes are posted on Sundays and Wednesdays. Don't forget to check us out on social media at jdr.podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.